I'm going to go through 2 different meetings tonight. One that's going to focus on junior high, one that's going to focus on high school. If you are here with somebody from high school, you're probably going to hear enough to be able to get yourself by. But if you want to stick around and listen to the more detailed version, you're certainly welcome to. That one will start around 7 o'clock. So if you haven't been over to the table, that's where the stuff is. For those of you that got here early, I was talking to Peyton Getz down here, who's our athletic trainer, and he informed me about a form from Impact Testing for concussions. And you don't need to get up and get it right now. But if your son or daughter is going to be involved with impact testing, whether it's this year or next year or in the future, you're going to want to grab one of those forms and get it filled out before you leave tonight. So I did not have the copies for those of you that were early arrivals. Probably didn't hit the table until about 10 to 6. So, all right. My name is Steve Lenz. I am no longer the principal here at Waupun Area Junior Senior High School. I am currently holding a position that's called Director of Activities and Community Partnerships. And so I am here in regards to the activities side of things tonight. I am now, one of my responsibilities to oversee all athletics and co-curriculars that occur within the district. And part of my responsibilities is to host the WIAA athletic code meeting. And even though our junior high, 7th and 8th grade students aren't involved in the WIAA, we do have an athletic or an activities code that those students need to abide by. And for those of you that have been involved in youth sports, it becomes a little bit different, because when you hit the middle school, or the junior high, I should say, and you start participating in activities, grades matter, behavior matters, all of those other kinds of things, and you're actually going to be signing a code that will be required before you're able to participate. So, once again, I'm Director of Activities now. All right, so here we go. I've introduced myself. You're going to be meeting Shelly Stelsel tonight. She's going to lead us off as soon as I'm done. She is the president of the Waupun Athletic Booster Club. You're also going to meet Peyton Getz, who is our athletic trainer. And then we also have Nate Brisky and Dan Damask, who are Fit Center advisors, or strength and conditioning. And they're going to talk to you about a new program that they're going to be introducing here at the school. Do we have any coaches that are here right now? Okay. Wasn't sure, but thought I would ask. All right, so with that, Shelly, you're up.
As he said, I'm Shelly Stelsel. I went to a booster club meeting thinking I just wanted to get involved because my kids are 3-sport athletes, and lo and behold, I am now the president. So, what we do in boosters is we provide additional funding for all our athletic programs. All parents of all athletes are members. You can help out with Booster Club by participating and helping in concessions, purchasing script, helping or attending Booster Club outings, and when you purchase 50/50, that also goes to Booster Club. Each sport should have a parent representative that provides information about what is happening in boosters. Boosters in just the last year, these are some of the things that we have provided and helped in our community and with our athletes. So you can read through that list on your own. Again, Again, if you want to support boosters, you can purchase script. I do have script order forms over on the table. I only provided about 25, but if you need some more, we're hoping to have a link from our Facebook page, our website, or you can see me and I can get some copies for you. You can also help in concessions, participate in our trivia night or our golf outing, and all these things. Athletes, when you get involved in those are things that you can put on your scholarship form. We also provide scholarships each year. Last year we gave out 4 scholarships, 2 $750 scholarships and 2 $500 scholarships. So those are the ways that you can help out. And then if you just want to be involved, like I did when I first started out, we do have meetings on Monday nights. It's the second Monday of every month. From August to June, it's at 7 o'clock in the high school library. We are currently looking for a secretary, and we are looking for one person to help with concessions. Jackie Clark was phenomenal in taking care of concessions for us, but she's kind of wanting to step back, so we are looking for one person to help out. If you're interested, please either contact myself or Steve Lenz, and we'll get you some more information. If you have any other questions, please feel free to ask me or to ask Steve. Thank you.
Before Peyton gets started up here, I just want to let you know that, like I said at the very beginning, in the early 2000s I was involved as an athletic director, and we had probably 2 or 3 people that would show up to each of our athletic booster club meetings. And it became very, very taxing to try and be successful in doing some fundraising and providing for our student athletes here at Waupun Area Junior Senior High School. And over the last 10 plus years, it has really taken off, and we've gotten a lot of families, a lot of parents, a lot of kids, a lot of community people involved in the booster club. So I would strongly encourage you to be a part of it. Whether you just show up, like Shelley said, whether you just show up to a meeting, whether you get involved at some of the outings that they have, their trivia night, their golf outing, which was held this past July. It's one way to help give back. And I think if you were to talk to the coaches, and some of you probably already know this, fundraising is becoming more and more of a challenge. And the Booster Club has been phenomenal when it comes to helping support our student athletes, whether it's from paying for fan buses or providing uniforms or some equipment. They have been absolutely outstanding. So anything that you can do, and this goes for the students as well, to get involved and to help out with the Booster Club. All right, next up, our athletic trainer, Pts.
So, like Steve was saying, my name is Peyton Getz. I'm an athletic trainer here. This will be my second year at the high school. This slide is kind of more for the high school students, but it still applies to all the junior high. So what I do is I provide emergency services, rehab services, any injury prevention, any injury evaluation for any athlete or non-athlete for the high school and junior high. We'll kind of get into my hours kind of in August when football's starting. It's just coming for practices, but once school starts, I usually have the athletic training rooms right down that hall, kind of in the locker rooms. I'll have a schedule on the door, so all you have to do is just kind of look at what days I'll be here. I also email the schedule every month to Steve. But we'll kind of get going. So this year we're having a new system. Every injury that we see, we have to document. So this year we're doing a healthy roster. It's kind of a documentation site. So what it is everything you see, like I said, we're entering encounters into our documentation. And this software is called Healthy Roster. So the difference is that the parents, the coaches, and athletes will all be connected with me in this system. So what our team kind of found is coaches will have questions and we'll answer that question. And the parents will have the same question and then we have to answer that question again twice. So we found this app where everyone's connected in the same, so every sport has every athlete in it, and every question could be answered at one time. And if any parents have any questions, they can contact me at any time throughout this app. So this is, like I said, it's kind of more for high school, but if I see any of the junior high students and your name is on the list, that you'll get an invite through an email that all you have to do is download the app, a free app, and then you'll have access to all your athletes, so your son or daughter's records or anything, any injuries that may pop up. So for example, if your son or daughter rolls his or her ankle at football practice, and I see them, I'll enter the injury in, you'll get a notification via email saying that Peyton entered an injury for your son or daughter. And then we can communicate back and forth. So if you have any questions on should we take them to the ER this night or anything like that, you can always contact me first and we can kind of have a conversation of what's going on. Or if you have any questions on rehab or what should they be doing or anything like that. So for coaches, which there's no coaches here, but for the coach aspect is they can all see how the status of their athletes are. So that's kind of nice too. So if that rolled ankle is going to be out for a couple of weeks, we'll have their status as not cleared, no practice or anything like that. But that's kind of just from coaches. And then any follow-up services too. So like I was saying before, if you had questions on any rehab that we've been doing or what they should be doing over the weekend, if it happened on a Friday, you can always, there's a messaging system where you'll all be entered into the system. And if you have any questions, you can just contact through that messaging system. And if I'm online, I can see that and then we can talk back and forth. So we don't have to go through, say, Steve, you have a question for him, and you have to contact me. Everything's all in this app. So all the questions just can go right to me and I can get back to you as soon as I can. And then what I was talking about before, the sign up, is you'll get a personal invite via email that says you are invited to download this app for Waupun Junior High, high school. And then they have a whole demonstration video of how to work the app and everything like that, so that will all be included. And then your athlete's profile will be created in that system. So if you have any questions, please let me know. I'll be over here at the end if you don't want to ask me now, but if anyone has any questions right now, I can answer anything. Well, like I was saying before, that I am kind of just more for the high school, but you always will have access to me. Just right down by the locker rooms. My schedule will be on the door every month. It tends to change sometimes, depending on how the weather is. Sometimes we have to switch games around, but I'll be at middle school football games too, so if you have any questions, you can let me know. Thank you.
All right, next up we're going to have Nate Brisky and Dan Damask up here. Both of them are the advisors down in the Fit Center. They're going to tell you a little bit about a brand new program that they're going to be introducing here this coming fall. Actually, it's probably coming up right now. Yep. All right. Maybe soon, short. All right. Nate, Dan. Okay. Just make sure Doug gets you on the camera.
I'm Dan Mask.
I'm Dave Brisky.
And we are the co-supervisors supervisors of the Fit Center. And we have a lot going on with the Fit Center, a recent addition, of course, and we're blessed with some nice space and a good place to train. And so if we do our job well and we get supported by the coaches and the athletes and the parents, then you don't have to get the notification of the injury from him, right? That's kind of how it works. That's our number one thing in the Fit Center is to keep our athletes well-balanced, functional, and healthy. So if you want to talk about PLTs.
Yeah, so a new program that is a digital platform that we are purchasing right now is PLT4M. I'm not going to go into a ton of detail with it. You can write it down and look it up. It has a certified strength and conditioning person on call at all times. It has multiple programs. It is built for 7th and 8th grade along with high schoolers. They start you out at a very low level, just learning to functionally move your body and handle your own body weight. Once you pass through some of the programs, it'll level you up. And it's built for in-season and out-of-season athletes, which is really nice because as a smaller school, obviously we rely on multi-sport athletes and for many of our programs to succeed. And this program does that. And it's a nationwide program. Many schools or a number of schools in Wisconsin use it. I've talked to some of the people that have it. They enjoy it. And we're going to try to get it into our FIA department.
A few of the goals I already mentioned, injury prevention and functional athleticism. That basically just means that we're training our athletes to move in a way that is efficient and prevents them from getting injured as much as possible. Right? And we train, for the most part, we train all the athletes relatively similar. They do, as they progress through the program, the lifts will progress and they'll become a little bit more challenging as the needs for them become a little bit more challenging on the fields and courts and so forth. As they get into like varsity level-ish, or you get some really marquee athletes, we can tailor make the programs a little bit to meet their needs. But for the lion's share of the program, we are training all athletes. And at the best schools, if you have any questions on that, like, how is it, why would you train a soccer player the same as a football player? Ask Kimberly, football, for example. They run the same program as the tennis team. So the science out there is overwhelming in how to train athletes to keep them healthy, and we're excited about really progressing that.
Yeah, the next point is just about culture, and if we get all the programs into the weight room, you start working together, and it's cool when there's respect that's built between whatever it might be, girls basketball and boys football or warriorettes or tennis. You see those groups of students working together, and we're big into trying to create culture in our fitness center, so that inclusion of various groups. But with that too, our culture goes, we want it to be 12 months a year, not just for the sport that you play. You're absolutely welcome down there 12 months a year, and it's not only about strength training, it's about nutrition, because you can't outwork a bad nutrition plan. You can be in there every day, but if you're not eating healthy, you're not going to see the gains that you want to see. So we talk about choices, time management, sleep management, all those things that can be a stress, especially at the 7th and 8th grade level for students to balance and to find that balance. We're just another resource for them.
And that third bullet point, as far as getting everyone on the same page, we probably should also have parents on that. Because if we are all operating with the same goal in mind, and you can find different ways to train athletes. There's a lot of different ways to go, but we're going to use the scientifically proven best practice way of training athletes. And if we can get everyone's support behind this, everyone benefits. And so we're working hard to get the FIA staff, which we've already been working with, and we're also working to try to bring more and more coaches to feel comfortable utilizing the services that we offer down there and hopefully helping to educate them as well.
Yeah, and the last point just again kind of highlights that we feel it's every program's duty to hand off that student athlete in a better spot than what they received them. And if each program can do that, where that student athlete can be at the end of their senior year, we think it could be pretty impressive. That's still something that we continue to craft here in Waupun, as we got some programs on board more than others, but that's the place that we definitely want to get to is where each program feels that it's their duty to hand off that student athlete stronger, healthier, and more balanced than what they received.
Any questions for us at all?
Yeah, I guess we never had that.
Yeah. As long as you follow the rules. Anything else? Feel free to drag us down if you have any questions.
All right, thanks, guys. All right, like they just mentioned, the big thing is trying to find some consistency. In the past, a lot of coaches have come up with their own training methods that they think is best for their sport, and not that it isn't what's best for their sport, but what we're finding out is that there is some consistency across the board no matter what sport you go out for. And by getting into this program, and we all know how attached, we're becoming to, or we're coming to our phones, how attached our kids are to these kinds of things. Another advantage to this is that this all goes through their phone. It can be done on a smart device, it can be done on a Chromebook. I can't tell you how many times that I've been in there, and those guys spend a heck of a lot more time than I do in there. You find paper and pencil laying around, after somebody's done with a workout, or maybe even in the middle of a workout, and then they can't remember what they've done. So now they can track all of this stuff through the app. And it's trying to become consistent with all of our sports, all of our coaches, all of our athletes. Everybody's doing the exact same thing. And these guys are the ones that are overseeing, what happens in the Fit Center. That also provides some additional support to our coaches, because if they're coaching here in this facility, they can send a group of guys in there, and these guys can supervise them while they're working out in the Fit Center, and yet the coaches can still be with some of their other athletes while they're at practice. So, all right, time to move on to the real exciting stuff, I know. You should all have in front of you something that says Waupun Area Junior High School Activities Code. And it's different than the high school code, and it's something that's brand new. I actually stole the idea from Jason Pittman, who is the athletic director over in Kewaskum. When I met with him this summer to try and learn a little bit more about this position, he said that so many people get caught up in, everything that goes on at the high school level that sometimes it scares away some of those younger student athletes. And he said what we found is we put together a separate code. It's not so intense. It's not meant to scare anybody away. It's meant to encourage. We also understand that for many of the student athletes at the junior high level, this might be their first opportunity to really compete. And we want it to be something that's seen as a positive experience. There is going to be some learning. Kids at the high school level are going to be held much more accountable than those at the junior high. So that's why it's just a little less strict, I guess you would say. All right. So I'm not going to go through and read it word for word. That's obviously something that you can do. Spend some time with your student athlete. But I do want to draw your attention to a couple of things. And I mentioned them a little bit earlier. This is, for those of you that have only participated in club sports, this is probably the first time now that you're going to be competing in a sport where when you walk into your classroom, the grades that you get in that class, the behavior that you have in that class, they all matter. Far too often, I've heard teachers here, well, it doesn't count in junior high. It only counts when we get into high school. Well, that's not the case here. It does count in junior high. Your grades count. Your behavior counts. So you need to make sure that, that you understand that, because you will be held accountable for those kinds of things. When we're all done tonight, I want you to deposit anything that you have signed and completed. So if you want to take some time tonight before you leave to read through this, sign it with your student athlete. It's designed so that you can tear the back page off and put it in the basket. That way you can keep the important part so you have it at home and you always have something to go back and reference. All right? As far as junior high sports are concerned, there's only 7 sports that we offer here at the junior high. Girls basketball, which is actually starting up in August. Football will start in August. Cross country in August. Boys basketball overlaps a little bit at the beginning of the high school season, but it actually starts in October. Wrestling starts in February. Volleyball is in March. Track is in March. So you're going to see some of those sports are actually at the same time that the high school, but not all of them are. The way that this is designed is so that middle or junior high student athletes have the opportunity to try and participate in as many sports as possible during their 7th and 8th grade years. All right? So there is a little bit of an overlap, but not a lot. So if they want to get involved, these are the opportunities. If you don't see a sport up here, then it's probably something that's still offered as a club sport. For example, you don't see soccer up here, you don't see hockey up here. Those are still offered, through the club sports, through junior high. They don't kick in until you get to the high school. Questions on that? Okay. We participated in a different conference. I'm still trying to figure out exactly who's in there, but I'm pretty sure it's schools like Horicon, North Fond du Lac, Mayville. I don't know, there's a couple of other ones there, but like I said, I have a few things that I have to learn. So it's a different conference than what we have in the high school. It's also a little bit different focus when it comes to competition. The focus on participation, it's more on development than it is on winning. Obviously, you go into athletics, you still want to be able to compete, you still want to win. But the goal here is that at the junior high levels, we're trying to give kids the opportunity. Like I said, some of the student athletes, this is their first chance. And we want to get them excited, we want to get them involved. So it's not a win at all cost. But you'll also see in that code that it doesn't necessarily mean that everybody gets the exact same amount of playing time. It still is based on your participation, your practice, how much you're investing in your sport. I already talked about the sports being staggered. I threw in this little bullet point: state championships aren't necessarily made in high school. My parents don't understand why their grandkids have been involved in so many things, but 3 of the 4 kids that my wife and I have had the opportunity to participate in state championships. And they got their start in every single one of those sports by the time that they were in kindergarten. So it's not to say that if you're just starting now that you don't have that chance, but you can't show up your freshman year in high school and want to learn how to play basketball and end up being on Coach DeMass' team, which was down at the state tournament last year. It just doesn't happen that way. It takes a lot more involvement than that. So we want to give kids the opportunity to participate as best as possible and as much as possible. And so I've talked about that. Now, this goes to the student athletes that are here tonight. For many of you, this is going to be the first contract that you're going to sign. All right? So it says, number one, are you going to sign that junior high code agreement? And then after signing it, what is your name going to mean? And I say that because if you say that you're going to try your hardest in your classroom, if you're going to try your hardest to, be a good student, to be a good person, you're signing your name saying that you're going to do that. So now is your responsibility to do the best that you possibly can so that your name means something, that you're signing on to that contract. All right, so by the first day of practice, you need to make sure that you have an athletic permit card. They're either going to be green or pink. The green ones, those are the ones that need to have a doctor's signature on them. Generally speaking, those are for student athletes that are in 7th, 9th, and 11th grade. That's where you have to go in and you have to get an actual physical from a doctor, and the doctor signs that green card. The pink card is called an alternate year card, and that's one that the parents just have to fill it out and sign it, and that gets turned in on those alternate years opposite of when those physicals are. So generally speaking, in 8th, 10th, and 12th grade. You guys don't need to worry about the WI Athletic Eligibility Agreement. That's something new for this year, and it's only for high school students, student athletes. But you're going to be turning in a signed activities code of conduct, a signed concussion form. There's actually going to be 2 concussion forms. All right, one's on the back of the packet that I passed out to you guys, and then there's that one that has the impact testing on it. You need to get those turned in. It does not have to be tonight. It just has to be turned in and recorded in the office before the first practice. And then, before you guys leave tonight, I have some sign-up sheets. So for the student athletes and the parents, make sure that you sign this because your attendance tonight is one of those requirements. That's why Mr. Dish is recording this, because anybody that's not in attendance has to watch that video and take a quiz. Cool. Okay, real quickly, my philosophy when it comes to sports and being a director of activities is that the coaches are the experts. You know, I played hockey, I played golf. I think I ran cross country for 2 or 3 years, but that doesn't make me an expert in those things. You know, I've coached a little bit here or there with my kids' activities. I've been to a lot of sporting events, but I am not the expert. So the coaches are the experts, and I support them. That's what I see as my role. I ask the coaches, and I haven't had our coaches meeting yet, but I'm going to expect them to have what's called a 24-hour rule. In the heat of the battle, a lot of times, you know, right after a game, we come up and we want to ask the coach, you know, why did you do this, or how come my kid didn't get that? We're asking for a 24-hour rule. Kind of lets the emotions settle down just a little bit and gives you a chance to process things, and then shoot them an email or a phone call or ask for a time to be able to meet with them. All right, so that's what the 24-hour rule. Generally speaking, if anybody contacts me, I'm going to ask, and it was the same thing when I was the principal. Did you talk to the teacher? In this case, did you talk to the coach? If you haven't talked to them, that's where this has to start. That's where the whole process starts. You, whether it's the parent, whether it's the student athlete, and I would encourage student athletes to be talking to their coaches. That's where it's got to start. And if something doesn't happen, something doesn't get fixed, and it needs to be resolved, and I need to be brought in, you know, that's fine. Then we can do it at that point. But if your first phone call or first email is to me, I'm going to direct you right back to the coach, because that's where it's got to start. Our junior high sports are not necessarily sanctioned by the WIA, so this is meant more for the high school, but generally they don't want their first phone call to be from a parent that's disgruntled that hasn't contacted anybody at the school. Fees, you can see junior high fees are $25 per sport, a maximum of $180 per family. Sportsmanship, not going to spend a lot of time on this because I will be doing more of my work on sportsmanship through Warrior Nation, which is a club that we run here at school. I'm going to see if we can get some junior high involvement in that as well, because I think sportsmanship truly starts from our student athletes and our students that are in the stands that are watching. And I think we've now started to see this here at Waupun Area Junior Senior High, that our students are better sports or have better sportsmanship than some of our parents do. And we're hoping that if our student athletes can be those good role models for their parents, then that should help to take care of some of that sportsmanship stuff. I was going to take some time to go through this. Well, let me quick do it.
A lot of people ask, where do you find the schedules for any of our sports that we have here at the junior senior high school? The thing is that we've gone through a brand new website design, and sometimes it's hard when you're learning that to be able to find those things. So one of the easiest shortcuts right now, and I'll be working with Mr. Dish on how to clean this up, but one of the things right now is just to Google East Central Conference. And so the Google will come up like this. Just make sure it's that top one there. This sheet will open up, and you're going to click on Waupun. When this opens up, over here underneath the calendar, you'll see View Schedules. And let's say we want to take a look at football middle school. We'll view it. And then it opens up and it will say, it will show you what the schedule is. Right? So that's a look at the middle school football schedule. You actually can go in, for those of you that are running a Google Calendar or some of the other calendars, you can subscribe to these things and you have the options to actually put those events right into your own calendar. All right, so that's the simplest way right now. We will come up with an even simpler way of doing that once I work with Mr. Dish and we get a brand new page set up for our athletics and activities. All right. Social media.
This was probably a bigger deal for high school kids a few years ago, but I know that phones are becoming a big deal even in the junior high now. And I cannot impress upon you, once you click, it's out there. And you can't take it back. Even if you try to delete things, once it's out there, it's out there. So be very, very careful. Parents, you know, I know it's tough, but this is where I'm asking for your help. You know, try and do your best to send the message to let them know what's appropriate, what's not appropriate. Because once it's clicked, once it's sent, there's no getting it back. I also want to draw your attention to vaping. There's a link on here. I will post this presentation so that everybody has access to it. But there's a link there to vaping that in the month of July, in the state of Wisconsin, there were 20-some kids, I think, that were that were in the emergency rooms and through the state of Wisconsin just because of vaping, what it's done to their lungs. And I can tell you personally from what we're trying to do here at the school, it's nuts what's going on with vaping these days. You just have absolutely no clue. I mean, they're the size of a flash drive. And it looks just like a flash drive that's in the side of a computer. Kid stuffs it up their sleeve, tapes it on the inside of their shirt. They have access to it whenever they want. It's in the bathrooms. People keep saying, how come you don't do anything about it? Gosh, I wish we had a magic idea for getting rid of vapes, because they are no good. So just want to raise your attention to that. If you've never heard of vaping before, Juuls, mods, you know, do some research, start looking that stuff up, because it's not good, and it's doing some really, really bad things, even though it's got the fruity flavor and kids think that it's cool. I wasn't even on the job for 3 days, and I got an email from somebody that turned in a student for vaping walking down one of the city's sidewalks. So they're doing vaping anywhere, anytime, all the time. So I just want to bring that to the parents' attention. Like I said, Warrior Nation, I'm going to be trying to get that up and running, even with the junior high. For sure we'll have it with the high school this year. And then I'm just going to bring up the involvement and the support. You know, do your best to try and get involved. Parents, student athletes, all of you. So, all right, any questions? Yes, sir.
If a student athlete gets caught vaping, is there any suspension?
So, like I said, there's nothing specifically written in the junior high one.
It should be.
But well, let's just say there is something in there that says something that is of serious nature. All right. So if we're talking about alcohol, we're talking about drugs, we're talking about tobacco, vaping, those kinds of things, that would be something of serious nature. So we will take care of that. There will be something. The other thing that I should let you guys know is that what you've heard tonight is just the minimum. Any one of our coaches can go above and beyond and make their policies even more strict than what we're talking about tonight. What we end up talking about at the high school level, every single one of those things meets the criteria of the WIA. Some of them are even more strict than the WIA, but our coaches can go above and beyond and have things that are more strict than what the school sets for. All right? So I totally agree with you. And if it becomes something that is that serious, they'll be spending a lot of time talking to me.
So it's not serious.
What's that?
So it's not a serious.
He
said if it becomes more serious, you guys are going to do something about it.
No, what I'm meaning is that this is the first year that we've had with this junior high code. If we get something that we need to define it more and more clearly for people to understand, then we will do that. That's why these are annual meetings, because this is something that, you know, it needs to be reviewed often. Vaping wasn't something that we talked about, you know, even 3-4 years ago. We were talking about cigarettes. Now it's vaping. So, okay. Anything else? Yes? I'm going to throw them down on the tables here as soon as I'm done. Anything else? Yes?
When are trainers available for the impact testing? They have a schedule available?
Peyton said that he will schedule that through the coaches. So once the kids are out for a sport, they'll get a schedule through Peyton via their coach.
So they're available to practice prior to the impact testing or not?
What sport are we talking about?
Football.
They'll have one out in time for football. Any other questions? Yes?
How many total forms tonight are we supposed to sign and hand in? I know, there's a lot, so I feel like I'm missing something.
The most important ones are all labeled by the baskets over there. You're gonna have a code. I don't know if you're gonna have a physical card that's ready to go tonight. There's 2 concussion forms. That's gotta be pretty close. Yeah. Anything else? Oh, I'm sorry. Yep. No. No. No, and that's probably, out of all of the forms that you're filling out, the one that's probably the most important one is the physical one. Because if something happens before that card gets signed, the school gets jammed up pretty bad. All right, one last thing. I want to thank you very much for taking some time away from your nice summer to be able to come here and be a part of this meeting tonight.